Today we will be multiplying using the distributive property. This addresses standard 7EEA1. Apply properties of operations as strategies to add, subtract, factor, and expand linear expressions with rational coefficients. Today's objective is that students will be able to simplify expressions using the distributive property and write their answers based on the commutative property of addition. Okay, so just a quick review on distributive and commutative property. You may see it written as just an example like 2 times 3y plus 7. Okay, so what that means is we take the number here that's outside the parentheses and we distribute it to each number inside the parentheses. So in other words, we're doing 2 times 3y plus, and I got that plus from right here, 2 times 7. So 2 times 3y is 6y plus 2 times 7 is 14. We cannot combine 6y and 14 because those are unlike terms. If 14 had a y on it, then we could. Okay, so this is our distributive property. And the commutative property of addition just means that you realize that you can add in any order. So we could also write that answer as 14 plus 6y. So that's where the commutative property of addition is coming in there, because you can just switch those two terms around. Okay, so let's look at some examples. You may see the 6 written here on the front. Just remember that is an imaginary multiply right here. So again, you may see it written as 1 plus 2n with the 6 back here on the back and maybe in parentheses, but that's still the same thing. We still take that number and we distribute it to each number inside parentheses. So that would be 6 times 1. We take this sign, this plus sign, and bring it down. And then 6 times 2n. So 6 times 1 is 6. And 6 times 2n is 12n. We cannot combine those, so 6 plus 12n is our answer. However, you need to know that you can write that also as 12n plus 6 because of the commutative property. Okay, in example 2, remember this number may be written on the front or it may be on the back, but we still distribute it to each term inside the parentheses. So we'll have 2 times 1. I'm going to bring down that plus sign. And then 2 times q. So 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 times q is 2q. So we would write this as 2 plus 2q. We cannot combine those terms. Or we can write it as 2q plus 2. So we can reverse that. Pause your video and try examples 3 and 4. So we're going to distribute our 5 by each term inside the parentheses. So 5 times 1, bring down this plus sign here, so plus, and then 5 times 5r. So 5 times 1 is 5, and 5 plus 5r is 25r. So we get 5 plus 25r, or because of the commutative property of addition, we can write that as 25r plus 5. Either one of those would be the correct answer. In example 4, we're going to distribute this 2 to each term inside parentheses. So that's going to be 2 times 2. I'm going to bring down my plus sign. And 2 times 2j. 2 times 2 is 4. And 2 times 2j is 4j. So we would write our answer as 4 plus 4j. Or we can write it as 4j plus 4. Either one of those would be correct. Okay, pause your video and try 5 and 6. So we're going to distribute the 7. Now remember that 7 may be back here behind the parentheses. You would still do the same thing though. So 7 times 1, bring down our plus sign, and then 7 times 3v. 7 times 1 is 7, and 7 times 3v is 21v. So we would write that as 7 plus 21v, or 21v plus 7. Okay, and number 6, we're going to distribute this 3. So we're going to have 3 times negative 4. I'm going to bring down my plus sign. And 3 times 2d. So 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. And 3 times 2d is 6d. So we would write that as negative 12 plus 6d. Or we could write it as 6d minus 12. So either one of those would be correct. Okay, pause your video and do 7 and 8. So we're going to distribute the 4. So we're going to have 4 times negative 7. I'm going to bring down that plus sign. And 4 times 2u. So 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. Plus, and then we've got 4 times 2u, which is 8u. So we could write it as negative 28 plus 8u, or 8u minus 28. So either one of those would be correct. Okay, and number 8, we're going to distribute this negative 3. So that's going to be negative 3 times 2. And then we're going to multiply it. We're not going to bring down this negative sign. I'm going to take it with me this time. So negative 3 times negative 5u. So that'll be negative 6. And then negative times a negative is going to make this positive. And 3 times 5u is going to be 15u. So we can write that as negative 6 plus 15u. Or we can write it as 15u minus 6. Okay, so again, I took this negative sign here with me down here, which is why I did not put anything here between these parentheses. So whenever we're doing a negative times a negative, that gave me a positive here, which is why I've got positive 15u. Pause your video and try 9 and 10. Okay, and number 9, we're going to distribute the negative 6. Now remember that negative 6 may be on the back here. Okay, so it may look like this. If that happens, we're still just taking that number that's outside the parentheses and distributing it by each term inside. So that's going to be negative 6 times 3z, and then negative 6 times negative 6. So I'm taking that negative with that 6 here. So negative 6 times 3z is negative 18z, and negative times a negative is going to make that positive 36. So we can write it as negative 18z plus 36, or 36 minus 18z. Okay, we're going to distribute this negative 7. So we're going to do negative 7 multiplied by negative 2. I'm going to bring down that plus sign. And negative 7 times q. So a negative multiplied by a negative is going to give us a positive. So 7 times 2 is 14. I'm going to bring down that positive sign, but now I've got negative 7 times q, which is negative 7q, and I'm going to have socks right here. So 14, that's not matching socks, so minus 7q. So we could have 14 minus 7q, or we could have negative 7q plus 14, because that 14 is positive. So either one of those two would be the correct answer. Okay, pause your video and complete your exit slip. It says the elevation at ground level is 0 feet. An elevator starts 90 feet below ground level. Okay, so they're at negative 90. After traveling 15 seconds, the elevator is 20 feet below ground level. So you need to think about that scenario for just a minute and think about, is the elevator going up or down? If the elevation at ground level is 0, it's starting at 90 feet below ground level, and then after 15 seconds, it's at 20 feet below ground level. So if it was 90 feet, now it's 20 feet below ground level, it's actually going upward. It is coming back towards ground level. Okay, so what has happened here is it's went from 90 feet below ground level to 20 feet. So it has come up 70 feet in 15 seconds. So we're figuring out the rate, which means how many feet per second. So 1 second is it changing. So you're welcome to use a calculator for this. So how do you go from 15 down to 1? Well, you do that by dividing by 15. So we're going to do the same to the 70. So 70 divided by 15, which equals 4.6 repeating. You're welcome to write that as a fraction, which would be 4 2/3. So again, the elevator is traveling upward at a rate of 4 2/3 foot per second, or feet per second. Okay, complete your assessment at the link below. Multiply using the distributive property. Have a good day, guys.